Welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and Lee Clark. Hi Lee, how are you?
Morning, Steve. How are you? I'm very good, thanks.
Yeah, good, mate. Another disappointing result last night, and although the team played, I felt better than they did against Watford at the weekend. To be fair, it couldn't have got much worse. Another defeat, and it just feels for me as if we're hitting the crest of a slump. We're 15 weeks into this takeover. People are starting to get, aerated and annoyed about that. Now the results are going against, but there just seems to be a lot of negativity around the club again.
Just shows you what football's like, Steve. The turnaround, how quickly things can change. When me as a player, when I was playing, or a manager, when you talk about a week's a long time in football, probably a lot of the general public think, what the hell's he on about? But it just shows you it's an unbelievable example. There was the positivity thinking the takeover was going to happen, the decent form, or the good form. No, I've done them a disservice there. The good form the team showed on Project Restart, but that's all evaporated. 3 defeats and the bounce. A lot of people starting to doubt whether the takeover is going to happen, because I still believe it will. I'm still one of them, probably the minority now, but the longer it does go on, it does seem to have took a long time, even, taking into account the situation that we're in, the pandemic, the scenario with the Premier League, what they had to deal with. It does seem to have took a long time. And then obviously you get the various different stories coming out about the potential takeover and the negative stories and even the positive side. So, yeah, it's been a tough time the last couple of weeks. Took the shine off. The team was looking to try and push into the top 10. Those aspirations went last night with the defeat. Don't think it's mathematically possible now to get into the top 10. And it's just going to be the norm, finishing mid-table at best. With the exception, I think, of one season in the Premier League under Mike Ashley, that the rest has been below, the mid-table or beyond. So that positivity that was there a couple of weeks ago is evaporated, to be honest.
Yeah, injuries aren't helping the matters either, and obviously players playing out of position. I think a lot of supporters in the build-up to the Spurs game, and of course Steve Bruce addressed this prior to the game in his press conference, were a bit bemused at his insistence on playing Shaw in midfield instead of playing him at the back, whilst you had a fully fit Matty Longstaff on the bench. And of course it led Steve Bruce to happen to come out and defend his decision, saying that he played Shaw in the centre of midfield because he felt he could win the game with him in there. What does that do to a player's mindset? Matty Longstaff, when he is a centre midfielder, he's sitting on the bench and he's seen somebody played out of position in his place.
Yeah, well, Steve, you remember before our conversation before the Manchester City FA Cup tie-in, when there was that injury crisis there, and I was saying that potentially Shaw could do a job because he looks like he's got good distribution and passing range as a central defender. And I did say that although it can be a bit different in midfield because it's a bit more hectic there in terms of the numbers that you're up against. And when Shaw did get in there, and I did use the phrase "the square peg in a round hole," and he has actually looked like that. He, even though he distributes the ball well and he comes out with it well as a defender, it seemed to have been a bit of an issue for him, being in what you call a bit of the minefield of the midfield area, where you're surrounded by a lot of bodies. And certainly when you get in the opponent's half of the pitch, you have to do things very, very quickly in terms of your passing. And he has looked a little bit out of sorts. And what's that done? It's affected him when he's eventually gone back in defence, because I thought last night he made some errors again, both as a defender and as a midfield player. And the situation with Matty at that time, he was one of the ones who was on the injury list. Now, we know we've got this debate whether he's going to sign or not, but, while the season's still on and he's contracted to you, you've got to use him accordingly. And I would be saying that Matty Longstaff, certainly over the course of the season, has shown that he can compete at Premier League level and do it at a high standard. And he's probably very, very frustrated. He's probably disappointed. There might have been some conversation between Steve and Matty to say, might have been put with Matty, listen, until you sign the contract, you won't be starting the game. But I sometimes think that's, you know, you're not doing yourself a favour, because you end up having to play, as we said, square pegs and round holes when you've got a perfectly capable young man who's more than good enough and chomping at the bit, I would have thought, to get on the pitch and give your side some balance. And didn't he pick up a shoulder? Didn't dislocate his shoulder as well towards the end of the game last night as well, Shaw? So to add to the injury list we've already got, and St Maxim apparently has got a cough. And what happens, Steve, is when you play a normal Premier League season, it's very rarely that they play very weekends, then midweek, and then weekends again. It'll probably be once over the course of the season. They do have long breaks in between games. So this has been something different for those medical teams in the Premier League clubs, all the backroom staff that they have, all the facilities that they have. But I think what's hurt Newcastle is, that, which we've talked about on many occasions, is the strength and depth, the size of the squad. You look at the bench that they had out last night, there's not a lot of possibilities. There's options for Steve to give untried youngsters an opportunity, but also players who aren't really the senior ones who aren't going to change the game in your favour. And speaking of substitutes, for me last night, Joe Linton produced a performance when he came on that basically was a no-go for me. I can back, and I've been there as a manager, and I'll back every single player that's played for us if he gives us 100% effort and he works his tail off. He tries to close people down. He tries to put pressure on defenders. He tries to work hard to create space in the box when crossing opportunities are coming on. And I just felt he'd done none of that last night. And I'm not prepared to, I've stuck up for him in the past and said, I hope he comes good. But when a player doesn't give what I think's the maximum effort, which I felt he did not last night when he came on, I'm not prepared to fight his corner. And certainly last night wasn't an acceptable performance to wear the number 9 Newcastle United jersey. That was for sure.
Kraft's had quite a bit of time now to adapt to the Premier League, and after a horrendous start which saw him sidelined by Steve Bruce, he seems to have come back into favour, whether that's to do with the way that he's come back into training after Project Restart, or whether he's shown some positive signs in there. He was left out to dry, I felt, a little bit last night with the position that he was asked to play. I think Bruce asked him to play like a right-sided centre-half. What have you made of Kraft? Is he somebody worth persevering with, do you think, next season? Or, has that been a bit of an error on behalf of the recruitment people at St James's Park as well?
Well, Steve, when you're signing players for £5 million or whatever he cost, it was around that region, £5.5 million. At Premier League level nowadays, it's equivalent to when I played of a couple of £100,000, isn't it? So, that you get what you pay for at times. I haven't been totally impressed by him, but like the opposite of what I was saying about Joe Linton, I think he tries extremely hard. I think he gives everything. I think for Harry Kane's first goal, he showed his naivety in his positional sense in terms of he was facing the ball. He wasn't square on where you could see both the cross and Harry Kane pulling off him. But in saying that as well, when they played with the wing-backs last night, when you play with wing-backs and your wing-backs are actually wingers who don't really have that defensive mindset, you get the scenario of what happened with Lazaro. If that had been a full-back playing in the wing-back position, you would like to think when Lazaro sees Harry Kane pulling off Kraft's shoulder, that Lazaro would have got in there, helped his mate out, got a timely header in, or put Harry Kane off, not give him a free header, and stop the goal. And then when he's done that, give Kraft a little bit of a telling off to say, listen, open your shoulders, look at the man and the ball. But because Lazaro is a winger, really, playing in a wing-back role, he didn't have that defensive mindset where, one, he didn't understand about trying to help Kraft out by getting in a covering position. And then obviously the goal, and Kraft showed his naivety. And, it was mentioned in commentary that earlier in the week, Rio Ferdinand had done a session on defending, and one of the points he made about was when you're defending crosses, about seeing the cross coming in, but also the man who you're marking having an open body shape so you can see both. And that was like a basic error. And you kind of give them opportunities to someone like Harry Kane because he just finished it. He made quite a difficult opportunity look so simple in the way he finished it. And So, yeah, listen, I don't think, in back to your question, Kraft, he is what he is. He would be a solid, probably squad player, and that would be it. And especially if you've got any aspirations to break into that top 10. And as I said, you get what you pay for. If you're paying just between 4 and 6 million quid for a Premier League defender nowadays, it's very difficult that they're going to come off. You will get the odd exception with a Dubravka when you spend that kind of money and he proves to be an exceptional signing. But the majority of them, you know, whatever you're paying, you get that type of player. So for you to get a Premier League quality standard defender now, you're probably looking 15, 20, 25 million plus. So, and that's the game we're in. That's the way the market in football world is. So I've got to say, you know, the loan signings that were brought in January don't seem to have made us any stronger. I don't think they're better than what we have in those areas. And so the thing is Steve's given the opportunity, whether it's with the new owners or whether Mike stays. This is a massive transfer window for Steve because he can actually pick the players that he wants. January is always a tough month to try and sign players at Premier League level, especially when you haven't got huge funds. But this summer, and it's a long window, closes on October the 5th, I think, from July 27th. This will be where Steve can bring in the type of players he wants in terms of what the finances. I mean, it's hard to think what he's going to have if Mike Ashley's still in charge. With Mike knowing that there's a potential sale on the horizon, if anything, we could definitely be shopping in the bargain basement, to be fair.
Is Lazaro worth a punt, do you think? I mean, when he comes on, he shows flashes of brilliance, and I just feel we haven't seen enough of him to make that decision to spend that kind of money. But certainly, if he was going to be played in a similar role on the other side, on the other flank to St. Maximin, then, you know, for me, it's a bit of a no-brainer at the price that they want. But he, you know, do you think that's going to be, you know, the case? Do you think he'll stay at Newcastle United?
I don't know, Steve. It's one of them. I totally agree that there hasn't been a lot of opportunity for him to show what he's about. And, you know, is he another one that's just going to be a squad filler? Is he better than whoever's going to start in those wide positions? Is he going to be the number one? I think we've got to sign those type of players this summer. We've got to sign players who are going to make the starting 11 better. We don't just want squad fillers. You know, if we can sign players who are going to improve the 11, the senior players that are in there now, they'll become the squad fillers. So that's what we've got to do. We cannot just say, oh, well, there's another one, because what you end up having is you have like a Lazaro, you have an Atsu, you have a Joe Linton. You know, you have numerous players who are they doing enough and what their job responsibilities are. St. Maxim's doing enough for me. Outstanding again yesterday. Love watching him. Goes past people with ease, both sides. Terrific player. The worrying thing with him is he's catching everyone's attention. The good saying I got off one of the senior managers I come against in managerial career was, Lee, you cannot hide bad players and you cannot hide good players. And we certainly cannot hide the abilities of St. Maxim. And what worries me is if there's not investment in the group, is his agent going to be into him and trying to get into him to go to another club that's competing higher up the football pyramid in the European competitions? Because since he's been fit and get a run of games into him, he's the shining light. He was terrific again yesterday. And they're the type of players we need in the starting 11. We need the players who are going to make a difference, certainly at the top end of the pitch. You know, when I was talking about Joe Linton earlier, Dwight Gale's actual opposite. His attitude is fantastic. His work ethic is fantastic. I mean, when he hit the post with that header, Joe Linton isn't even getting that one because Joe Linton doesn't have that type of move. He doesn't move that much in the box, Joe Linton. He just stands waiting for crosses. When you're an attacker, you have to get half a yard across defenders to make the crosses. You know, it's very rare that when you cross a ball at Premier League level, that you'll be able to head that cross in, standing in the same position that you were previous. You've got to get a bit of movement. You've got to get across a defender. You've got to pull off his shoulder like Kane done to Kraft. You've got to do something. You can't just stand where you are. And Gale has that in abundance. Just, you know, and he's done quite well. Well, he's done very well since Project Restart. But is Dwight Gale going to be the answer if we want to get into the top 10? Probably not, but I wouldn't mind having Dwight Gale on the bench to have it be one of our possibilities to maybe change a game. So that's what I'm saying with the players that get brought in this summer by Steve. If the ownership stays the same, have to be players that are going to go straight into the 11 so we can become better. Not ones that are just going to be just as good as what we've got or just exactly the same type of player. There has to be an improvement.
Bentaleb hasn't really done a great deal. I've noticed a lot of criticism of him online from various fans, and I can't see him cementing it to Newcastle. Can you?
Not for me, Steve. Not for me. Not being impressed at all. Looks laboured. Doesn't play penetrating passes. Not great defensively. Certainly not any better. Probably not as good as the midfield players we already have at the club. So yeah, for me, no, not really. I wouldn't be wanting to pursue that one.
Let's try and look at some positives from from last night's game, and I do think there was at least a couple. Dubravka, I mean, the stats on the Premier League stats and seeing them on Sky Sports as well. Dubravka's made the most saves in the Premier League. It's no surprise. He's been outstanding, and again, pulled off another superb save last night.
Steve, I totally agree what you said at the start of the session. You said that you thought it was a decent performance. I personally thought it was a good performance as well. I thought there was some good football played. I thought we kept possession of the ball well. We attacked with authority. We got St. Maxim in the game. I would have liked to have seen Almiron in the game a little bit more in overall. But we did play some decent stuff. We're disappointing in how we defended. Created chances. I mean, I think it was 22 shots, I think, on the goal. So, that shows that the team played decently. Dubravka, the one, is we've said all along, he's been an outstanding signing, and we mentioned the small fee that was paid for him, being one of the signings of Newcastle's history, to be honest with you. Them type of figures, and in the context of where we are at this moment in time. The thing that's worrying is he's had to make more saves than any other keeper as well, so it shows he's been quite overworked as well, but it shows you that he is an outstanding goalkeeper. He will make mistakes. All the top keepers make mistakes, and as we've said many times, and surely everyone understands this, you're a keeper, you make a mistake, it'll end up in the goal 9.5 times out of 10. You're not getting the help of your teammates if you're a defender, a midfield player, an attacker. So yeah, he's been outstanding. I thought there was some real good performances in the team. I thought they were bright. I just felt that we've give poorer goals away again, and it just seems to have took the gloss off. I was thinking that the team was going to be getting into that top 10, would have given everyone a boost to finish in that top 10 this season, and that looks like it's slipping away. In the last 2 remaining games aren't the easiest games as well, certainly when you haven't when you've got a lot of injuries.
Yeah. Matt Ritchie, what a goal that was last night. When he doesn't score tap-ins, does he, Matt Ritchie? There's always one of those strikes from the edge of the box, or he's running in and he's hitting it Brian Robson style, with a lace of his boots, straight into the top corner. And that was probably up there with one of his best for Newcastle.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've been a manager on the end of some of Matt Ritchie's wonder strikes when I've managed against him at Bournemouth. So, yeah, listen, he epitomises what supporters want in that black and white jersey. Not only is he consistent in his performances, wherever he's asked to play, he's at it every game. He works extremely hard. He's got an unbelievable will to win. And he scored, like you said, he scored some terrific goals. He's been a real good signing. And I said that I knew, obviously, seen a lot of them when I've come up against him as a manager against Bournemouth. And he was always someone I admired. And I knew he'd be a good signing for the club. I knew, obviously, when Rafa brought him in to get the club out of the Championship, I knew it was certainly for the club to be in the Championship and get a player like him at the time was a terrific signing. And, he has epitomised what every Newcastle fan wants from that player. They want everyone to give everything every game and work hard, and he does that, and he obviously got quality as well.
Yeah, top player, and I still think there's a a couple of more years in him as a Newcastle player. I hope so anyway, because somebody with his work ethic and his commitment is something which is hard to find in football. Another player I want to touch on, it was the birthday boy yesterday, is Muto. And you've already mentioned that you were disappointed in Joe Linton. And I know you have been fair. You've supported him probably a lot more than I have this season. But Muto was an unused sub on the bench. He's a striker. He's a different option. Why do you think he hasn't been given the opportunity? Is there a possibility maybe there's something in his contract where if he plays X amount of games, or do you just think Bruce doesn't fancy him?
Well, I hope there wouldn't be anything to do with those type of clauses. I hope Premier League clubs, and certainly our club, Newcastle, don't have to go down that route. I mean, they're type of clauses that lower league clubs will have to deal with, if they cannot afford to pay an extra payment and that season's running to a close with nothing to play for. They're the type of avenues the lower league clubs go through, and you understand that sometimes with our finances, but certainly not a Premier League club in Newcastle. I personally just think Steve, doesn't fancy him at all. He hasn't played a lot of minutes, if any. I think the writing's on the wall, because as you say, for me, Joe Linton hasn't produced at all, and so yeah, I think, and he's one of them I touch on. When he was signed, was he any better than what we had? Was he just going to be a squad filler? We've got to get away from that. We've got to get away with just stockpiling players who are not really that, are certainly not better than what we're starting 11 are. And then they end up on the bench and they don't play any role in the team. That they don't make an impact off the bench. He could have an argument to say, well, I haven't had an opportunity, and rightly so. But we don't see what's going on the training field. Is he doing enough there? There must be something, because he comes across as a lovely guy. Those lads from that part of the world always come across as very respectful, nice people, hard-working. So I wouldn't have thought it's anything to do with his attitude application. Looking from the outside, I would have thought it's just Steve doesn't think he's up to the task, and that's got to be a worrying thing when Joe Linton's getting put on ahead of you.
The dreaded T word, the takeover. Got to mention it as always, because it is still ongoing. And like you, I still believe that this will happen. I've got no doubt in my mind that it will. I just think that everything's been, all the boxes have been ticked before they allow it to go through. But the news this week of BN Sport being banned in Saudi Arabia, again, it just seemed to cause a mild state of panic amongst the support on social media, and nobody really understands what any of this particularly means. It just meant that BN Sports isn't going to be broadcast in Saudi Arabia. Does that affect the takeover? No, it doesn't in my mind. But yeah, I mean, there's a confidence there, I still think, about amongst the right people, and I do feel that Richard Key's coming out, certainly. I'm not sure whether you saw that, but he wrote a blog which he put out over the weekend, which basically he said, he's tended to suggest that the deal would probably be announced later this week, potentially Friday. So, yeah, it's just another part of the ongoing saga, isn't it?
It is, Steve. I mean, to be honest with you, since the football's restarted, I've took a little bit of a backseat away from all the takeover stuff. I haven't really paid a lot of attention to it. I've had the focus of the matches, which has been enjoyable, really, because if I hadn't had that and the takeover stuff was swirling around my head, I would have been climbing the walls, to be honest with you. It's took that long, and I'm glad I did see that story about the beIN Sports in Saudi, etc. So I'm glad you cleared that up, because I did look at the headlines. I didn't read into the story, because I'm probably like most Newcastle fans. I'm getting a little bit concerned, but still think it'll happen. But obviously getting frustrated as well, because, and as I said it before, understand why the reasons why it couldn't happen very, very quickly. But this seems to, progressed and stagnated for a long time. So let's hopefully, we need a boost. The Newcastle fans need a boost. We need to just get a lift somehow, and this would be massive going into the short summer we're going to have, and then getting ready for the new season starting, I think, on the weekend of September the 12th. So we could do with that, especially can we get something done? Can we get an announcement before July 27th when that transfer window opens? Because I think there would be a mood of doom and gloom if we still have the same ownership on the 27th of July. And it'll be difficult for us to bring any type of quality players in.
Reports yesterday suggested that supporters are going to be allowed back in at the start of next season in September. But with every cloud, there isn't always a silver lining. And they suggested that it was going to be 40% capacity that was going to be allowed in. What's your views on that? Because it creates a bit of a nightmare for the club, first and foremost, because they have to decide, who they let in. And, would you prefer to start next season with no fans in, or, have that 40% in to at least give a little bit of home support?
Well, straight away, I want fans back ASAP. I want them back. I found it difficult to watch the games. I'm trying to work out in my own head. I try to think about it, what's going through the players' minds. The adrenaline rush that I used to get playing was massive. I loved it. I loved playing in front of the supporters, the noise, the passion. It was phenomenal. And that's one thing you miss when you stop playing. So I can only try and imagine what the players are going through. How do you do it? How, for example, did Newcastle United decide which 40% are coming in the ground when you have probably 80 to 90% of your capacity as season ticket holders in anywhere in corporate hospitality who've paid up front? So how do you come to the conclusion who the 40% is? You're going to upset so many people. I wish. Can we just wait? If it's just going to be a short period of time, I'd rather just wait and go straight back into full capacity. If it's going to be a long period, I would prefer to see some kind of fans in, but it's going to be a logistic nightmare for the football clubs, because they're going to upset some of their loyal, very, very loyal fans who've been there through thick and thin, when they have to decide on how and what the criteria will be for you to go as one of the 40%. So if that was the only option and it's going to be a while it's going to be like that, I'd go for it. I'd rather have some than none. But if it's just going to be another shorter period of time where we stay empty and then all of a sudden you can go full capacity, I'd rather go that way.
Yeah, fair enough. Me too as well. I think it's all fans back for me, or no fans back, because it's. I just think it'll be a nightmare just trying to decide who attends, and you see the corporate sections etc. go in. Well, they're not the noisiest bunch of people. I've sat in those sections many a time, and there'd be no atmosphere generated from there. You would imagine that they would give the option to those who were in the singing areas more. But we'll wait and see what happens with that. Another change during lockdown and Project Restart, of course, was the introduction of 5 substitutes and the drinks break. Now it's been talked about, and now looks like it's going to be guaranteed that from next season we will have 5 substitutions available. Is that something you agree with, Lee? Do you think it's made the game better, or do you think that could be abused in a lot of ways?
Well, to make myself clear, certainly don't want the drinks break. Don't need it. Not necessary. Done the job that was needed to do because of the shortness of the the mini pre-season the players had, so it was important they got breaks. Fully understand why it's been done in this Project Restart. But when the new season restarts, it's not necessary. We've never had it before. We don't need it. If you're a team in momentum in that first 22, 23 minutes, even that 2-minute drinks break can just knock you out of sync and the game can change. And plus, we don't need that, because sometimes managers and head coaches have bent the rules a little bit and done a bit of tactical work, which it wasn't meant to be for that. It was just meant to be for the players to refuel, get a breather, with the fatigue setting in, with having short mini pre-season, as I said. The 5 subs just makes the powerful more powerful, because we've talked about it many times. If you're a Man City, you're a Liverpool, you're a Man United, a Chelsea, and you've got top quality internationals on your bench who are just as good as the ones on the pitch, and you've got 5 opportunities to change that, that is dreamland. If you're Newcastle United and you're having to feel because your squad's small and it's reduced, it hasn't got a lot of, quality like we've talked about today. You know, there's been youngsters on there, untried youngsters. There's been players who probably aren't any better than the lads already on the pitch. It doesn't make any difference to Steve, because he's finding it difficult to put 3 players on to change the game in any way. So 5 doesn't make any difference. So for me, it'll just end up making the more powerful teams even stronger. Because, you know, for example, I'll take, you know, one of the benches I seen one time when Man City played one of the games. They had the likes of Bravo, the other keeper. They had Kyle Walker. They had Phil Foden. They had Kevin De Bruyne. They had Aguero. You know, there's 5 potential replacements straight away. I mean, and you look at the benches of those top teams, and without being disrespectful, most of them players would go straight into our first team. So, you know, all it does is makes the big boys even bigger. So, I don't know. I'm only speaking because from a selfish point of view, from a Newcastle. If we went and got this new ownership and we ended up having a super strong squad, I'd be saying have 5 subs. I think everyone's just going to be selfish in that, aren't they?
Yeah, of course they are. Of course they are. Kieran Kelly at the Chronicle did a cracking article. I'm not sure whether you've seen it this week, about the old Addidas strips. And obviously, of course, you were part of that fantastic entertainers team, and you know, had the joy of wearing the tops. And we often have it when we've done live Q&As with the supporters. They always ask, have you got any of your strips left, or what was your favourite strip, Lee? But yeah, it's a fascinating article. It talks to people like Carol Beverley, who's now Carol Stonehouse, who was obviously the marketing manager at the club, and talks to the guys from Adidas who talk about the reason behind, you know, coming on board with Newcastle. And a lot of praise really for Sir John and Lady May for, you know, for their involvement in it. But I think what struck me about the whole article was, you know, obviously Les Ferdinand was quoted in there saying at first he didn't like the old purple and blue top because he thought it looked like a rugby top, but then, you know, he grew to love it. And I think it was amazing me how much effort and time went into just something as simple as the strip. Nowadays we just, you know, certainly over the Ashley era, it's just been, you know, I do feel as if the strips have been cheap and nasty. I haven't bought one since Mike Ashley, you know, changed things around, and you know, the tops just aren't as good a quality. They don't look good, and of course, you know, I'm not going to wear a top with a loan deal company on the front of it, or a betting company. It's just not what I wanted to do. But yeah, I mean, what's your memories of that of the strips that you had to wear?
Oh, Steve, I've seen the article and it's inspiring. It brought, you know, the hairs up on the back of my neck. You see, I didn't think I had any more tops that I wore for any of the clubs left, but my son must have nicked one of them one time, and I've still got one of the black and white Granda tops, you know, from there, the Premier League badges on it. And everything about it had the Newcastle Brown Nail logo on it. So there was, you know, local company right next to the stadium. So there was that affinity. That was always special. And obviously had the time with the blue star on as well. And the strips were just iconic. I think, as you say, people probably didn't realise the amount of work that went in between Sir John and Lady May and Kevin as the manager. They had a lot of say in the strips. It was nothing to do with... It was in cooperation with Adidas, but I think they had a massive say in it. They wanted the strip not just to be a football strip. They wanted it to be a fashion item for the fans. They wanted it to be where the fans enjoyed it. They could wear it with pride. Obviously, they could because the team was, you know, doing good things. But they wanted the fans to wear it all throughout the day. So when they were going to the match, they could wear it with their jeans and then go out for a drink, and you know, and it was something different. And honestly, the whole period, you don't realise at the time. It's usually when things like that happen, it's the time after that you realise how iconic it becomes and how important. And just the whole link to it, it was you know, as you say, Les probably got to like it because he just started scoring for it for fun. I remember I think his first away goal when we wore it down at Burnham Park, the old Bolton ground, when he scored one of his trademark headers from the David Ginola cross. And then obviously I think we were live at Sheffield Wednesday when Peter scored that outrageous goal, and then David Ginola scored a terrific goal in it. And it was just a strip that you loved wearing. The black and white was the way that was designed. And there was a real chemistry between Addidas and the players and the staff, they were continually at the training ground, always making sure that we were happy with the training equipment, the strips. If there was any issues, there was a few of us sponsored. We were book contracts with Addidas at the time, and there was a real cohesion between the two. There was a terrific strong relationship. We used to get invited as a group down to their warehouse in Stockport at the time, and it was just part of the whole. When you look back on it now, everything just was said just so professionally and brilliantly, and it was all to the benefit of the team. It wanted to be so the team was comfortable in what they were doing. There was no excuses for us anymore. There was no excuses for why if there was any sort of indifferent performance. It was nothing to do with the kit, nothing to do with our boots, nothing to do with the preparation, and that was just another massive thing. And it is, I think, if you go back in time and if you were to put a poll up, I think those two kits would probably be very, very high up, if not the top two in the poll for being the most favourite kits. And as I said, this with the sponsorship deal being with another, local company, which was right next to St James's Park, that makes it special as well. Because I'm like you in terms of, I don't even know some of the companies that are on the front of the shirts now, and so that was the difference then.
Yeah, no, great times, great memories, and great shirts. Jose Mourinho has been in the news this week, and obviously he'd be delighted this morning. It's the first morning he can wake up and say that he's won a Premier League game at St James's Park. And it was a nice touch on his Instagram last night. He posted a picture of the Sir Bobby Robson statue, which stands in the area where you go in as a player at St James's Park, and he just put a "finally boss" quote on there, and he's got a lot of affection for Newcastle. I know some supporters feel like it's flannel and they just feel like he's buttering Newcastle fans up, but look, he was Sir Bobby Robson's protege. He's gone on to do fantastic things in the game, and I personally have always felt that whatever he says about Newcastle and James's Park and the fans is very genuine, and he means it from the heart. And for him to say that prior to the game yesterday that he wouldn't have enjoyed the game as much because the fans weren't there, I think I just think he's just been a normal football person. You know what I mean? He's getting his message out there, and I think Jose gets misunderstood. He's been in the news this week because of the financial fair play league, and that's what I want to speak to you about. Obviously, the ruling came back earlier this week. Man City's ban, has been revoked. They've got a lesser fine. Some people pointing to the fact that Newcastle's takeover going through. It would be a good time to come in and buy a football club now, especially when you have the money that PIF have. So, what was your take, first of all, on Jose's feelings for Newcastle, and then on that decision made by FIFA?
Well, I've watched this over many years with Jose and his affinity with Newcastle, and Jose Mourinho doesn't give flannel. So those fans who think he is you can talk about with the financial fair play, the way he spoke about the situation there, he doesn't give any BS. He speaks from the heart. He speaks what he feels is the truth. He's never been one for just saying the right things to make people feel happy. He does have a strong affinity. He adored Bobby Robson, Sir Bobby, like most people did. He had a very strong, close relationship. He also said that after the game, and I'm glad you pointed out because I read his quotes, was it's the first time he can walk past the statue and have a smile to his boss, because he says he's had a sad face on all the other occasions. He speaks strongly of Newcastle United for many years since he's been in the English Premier League, since he's witnessed the passion of the fans. He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to give anyone flannel. Jose Mourinho is not a man who does that. He doesn't need to. He's got an unbelievable track record as a manager. I would probably say if there was one more job in English football that he would want, it would probably be the Newcastle United job. Whether that would happen remains to be seen. But I think deep down in his heart, for him to witness and be the manager of the passion of the fans and of that football club, and to manage the club of his mentor, like you said, someone who he looks up to so much, I think that would tick the box for him. So I don't think that's, I think that's really, really genuine. And all the positive stuff he talks about the club, you know, even when he's had disappointing results and he usually flies off the handle, he's always been very positive about the support and always talked about there's going to be difficult games at St James's because of the passion of the fans. He's never once wavered from that. So I think it's 100% genuine. In terms of the financial fair play, I totally agree with what Jose was said. It might come across in or portrayed in the wrong way. But what he was saying is, if you're not guilty, you're not guilty. So why should you pay a 10 million euro fine as well? It should be zero, the fine, shouldn't it? So if they're not guilty, they shouldn't have to pay anything. They shouldn't have a points deduction. They shouldn't have a ban from European competition. They shouldn't have a monetary fine. I just think it's another way. It's another example of the authorities just sending out mixed messages and getting things wrong. I don't know what the evidence Manchester City have took. You know they're going to take a very powerful legal team to UEFA to fight it. And I'm glad. I'm hoping that it's the right decision. I'm hoping that, you know, they haven't done anything untoward, because I want to see Manchester City in Europe. I want to see Manchester, because I think the manager and the players they've got are exceptional. I think they're a club that's growing and getting stronger all the time. And I want to see them representing our country in Europe in a strong way. But, you know, those rules were brought in. Now, what you might say is financial fair play is pointless, which Jose has come out and said. You know, if you don't have to stick to it and you can get round the rules. So what that means is, very interestingly, if Newcastle's takeover happens, we don't have to abide by financial fair play. We can just go out and spend hundreds of millions on players and forget about what's coming in through the door in terms of finances. So that could be very exciting and interesting. I think what it's done is it's not any, there's no black and white areas. It's a little bit grey, and it hasn't taken the issues away. There's going to be lots of questions being asked, and certainly what Jose mentioned, as I said, about no points deduction, no ban from Europe, but a 10 million euro fine doesn't really add up. It should have just been completely nothing. You know, they were guilty of nothing, so there's nothing to do.
Yeah, 100% agree. And let's hope, you know, the takeover goes through and that situation does develop for Newcastle. Few fans were getting rather excited about Jose's comments, of course, and you know, the rumour mill as it is in football. People were suggesting that there might be a vacancy at Tottenham, and that Pochettino may return there, and Mourinho might be looking for a new job. So, I mean, you know, you said that he would love that job. Would you be happy to see him? We've had the Rafa Benitez and Pochettino links. Would you, you know, if Mourinho was thrown into the mix, would you like to see Mourinho come to St James's Park ahead of those two?
Whether they're ahead of him, I don't know. But if there was that possibility and he landed in the dugout, I wouldn't be disappointed. I've had the pleasure of, you know, being alongside him for a long period. When he was manager at Manchester United and I was manager at Bury, we stayed in the same hotel. So had the opportunity to have a couple of glasses of wine and a couple of, you know, meals with him, and, you know, picked his brains, and he was terrific. He was brilliant for a young manager like me. And, you know, I know there's been talk of that, you know, he's lost his way a little bit. I don't believe that. Even, you know, he got the criticism with his time at Man United. He won the Europa League, he won a cup competition domestically, and he got them into second place against a wonderful Manchester City team. So I don't see that as being an unsuccessful period. Certainly, you know, what's gone on at Man United since and where they're at the moment. He took over a Tottenham squad that was in transition. I think that what you'll see in the summer, he'll put his own mark on that. I wouldn't be disappointed if Jose Mourinho came to Newcastle United Football Club somewhere down the line, because what I would know is there's a man who's got genuine passion for the club. The fans he's took the fans to the heart, and you know, he knows how to work. You cannot criticise someone who's won so many trophies in their career at various different clubs and various different levels in various different countries. You know, so I'm probably one of the minority now. I really like him. I think he's a terrific man when you get to know him. And he cares about the game. He cares for the clubs he works for. He can be a hothead, but I think that comes with the what you like about him. You know, you've got to have that passion. Be yourself. Don't try and be someone you're not. And if you've got a little bit of a fiery streak in you, no problem. Just make sure you put that in the right way.
Coming up to the last 2 games of the season, obviously we've mentioned at the top of the programme that we're going to have a defensive crisis now with Lascelles missing, Lejeune missing, now Shaw out, or all missing the final 2 games. Will Steve Bruce, do you think, turn to some of the youngsters? One of the names that's been bandied around as a potential centre-half defender playing against Brighton or Liverpool is Kel Watts. Obviously, he's been a star man in the under-23s. He's had loan spells at Mansfield and Stevenage. Do you know anything about him? And do you think it's time to give the youngsters a run out? Or do you think, with the team not playing so well, it might be a bit of a baptism of fire and best to avoid that?
Well, I do know Kellen Watts very well. I've on a couple of occasions I've tried to take him on loan. I've watched his progress. I think he could be one that has a good future at the club. He's got a lot of strong attributes as a central defender. I think it's probably the right game at Brighton. I don't think the club certainly can't get any higher in the league in terms of getting into the top 10. There is a crisis. He is a central defender. I mean, the team aren't getting results, but they're not playing badly, or they didn't play badly against Tottenham. So there's a fact he could go into a team that, potentially could play a good game. Whether they get the result or not remains to be seen. But, he wouldn't be stepping into a team that's playing poorly. The last 3 results haven't been, and certainly the performance against Tottenham was decent, but the results haven't been what they wanted. So for me, if there's a position there and Steve wants to, if he's going with a flat back 4, if he's going with 3 defenders and he's short of a central defender, definitely this is the time. 2 games to go. Steve's even come out and said they're looking towards next season now in terms of the planning. So give young Kellen Watts an opportunity. See if he can be the one that comes out and gives him a chance to start next season in the team. And sometimes you get a young player like that makes that you don't have to dip into the transfer market in that position. You can go and use your funds elsewhere. So I'd be for all that. And certainly he's got the physical attributes. What you'd be coming up against in the Brighton team, you'd be coming up against a team that plays a lot of possession-based football. So he'll be used to that from under-23 football. The break quickly. So, it's going to be, if he wants to be a first-team player at Newcastle, he's going to have to handle these type of different tactical situations. So I certainly would give him that opportunity.
Last question, Lee, for you today. What do you want to see from the team in these last 2 games against Brighton and Liverpool?
I just want to see that that there's a real honesty, there's a real fight, there's a real determination to get the 6 points that are available. Try and finish the season on a high so you can take that momentum. As I said, that break's going to be so short. It'll like be just having an international break. So if they go into that with a couple of positive performances and results, that can, stand them in good stead for the start of the new season. It gives them an opportunity, as I said, them as individuals, the players, to say to Steve, listen, I want to be part of the future, because he's going to have a big summer in his hands in terms of recruitment. And they've got to do that. We don't want the season to fizzle out. Things had been so positive a couple of weeks ago before the Man City game, where the results were strong. There was a chance to get in the top 10. That isn't going to happen now. But, let's try and finish with as many points as we possibly can and as high up as in the table, so we can go into next season with confidence. It's a short period and have that momentum, because we don't want to start the new season, with a disappointing start and be behind the 8 ball, because it's difficult to play catch up.
Lee, as always, absolute pleasure, mate. I'll speak to you next week.
Cheers, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.